Over the last week, life got hard. That's the best way I can express it. I felt adrift, thrown off kilter, and questioned many of my beliefs. You might say I lost my moorings, and you'd be right. For several days, I didn't practice the daily disciplines I know ground me. Due to various circumstances, I neglected my time with God, reading His words in the Bible and journaling. I forgot to talk to God about everything on my heart. Basically, I allowed the cares swirling around me to distract me while abandoning healthy self-care. You and I can justify the mitigating factors, but the hard truth is, I forgot to stay grounded in God. And the result, I became grumpy and disoriented to the point of exhaustion. Gratitude and an attitude of expectation took a long walk in the opposite direction. Miserable, I sought validation from others. And that's when life further derailed. Now, I'm not going to bore you with the details, but I met with my coach, 3 days of hard work to unravel the mess, and too many lost productive hours later. I pray I've learned this lesson well this time. In just a few hours, I forgot the healthy habits I'd established and took a few steps backward into unhealthy behaviors. We all do that from time to time. Let's look at 5 areas to ground yourself in God, practice healthy self-care, and prevent derailing your recovery, like I did. Number 1, spiritual grounding. I need daily communication with God through talking to Him or prayer, reading the Bible, and journaling. I must feed my soul. Jesus exemplified this in His life. In the Gospel of Mark, we read that Jesus spent time with God early in the morning. He knew His desperate need to connect with His Father regularly. It's the same for me. I remain grounded spiritually and face the day energized when I follow Jesus' example. On the days when I start with the news, social media, email, or something like that, my attitude takes a beating. I hear or read about what's wrong with the world, how many fires are going on, crimes, and other negative pieces of information. Instead of feeling grounded and prepared for the day, I'd rather go back to bed and sleep. Who wants to face that outlook? My soul shrivels, and my attitude stinks. Healthy spiritual self-care means grounding myself in God's view of the world, not the world's view of itself or God. How do you start your day? What does your morning self-care routine do to ground you? Number 2, physical grounding. Now, I'm never going to be a star athlete, but some routines help me take care of this body I live in. Walking for at least 20 minutes a day helps fight back the depression and strengthens my respiratory, circulatory, and cognitive systems. Taking care of this body means paying attention to my fatigue levels, eating food to provide energy, maintaining sleep routines, and the like. You don't become an elite-level athlete by feeding your body continual junk, neglecting adequate deep sleep, and skipping rest and rejuvenation periods. Well, how would you describe your physical grounding? What would you put down if I asked you to write out in detail what you need to feel physically fit? Like spiritual grounding, you and I must understand our physical needs and identify healthy ways to meet those needs. Number 3, mental grounding. How do you know you are grounded mentally? That's a great question. And why should you care? Well, almost a year ago, I suffered deep brain fog due to a medical condition. I felt frustrated trying to put 2 simple sentences together. Information I knew wouldn't come to the forefront of my mind when I needed it. Several times I felt embarrassed because I couldn't get my mind to make sense of anything. The United Negro College Fund used the slogan, "A mind is a terrible thing to waste," in 1972. They were trying to convince people about the importance of education. But not wasting your mind means more than filling it with knowledge. The Bible tells us to use wisdom, which is the application of knowledge to a particular situation. It often pairs wisdom with discernment, which means to see beyond the surface of the circumstances, or we could say read between the lines. Brain fog prevents you from acting on wisdom. Instead, we tend to react to our circumstances. But mental grounding allows us to tap into these marvelous brains God created, use the knowledge and experience we've gathered, add in a healthy sprinkling of discernment, and work through the obstacles we face. How do you mentally ground yourself for the day? What about when you face a difficult challenge or obstacle? Have you invested in mental grounding so you don't waste the miraculous gift of your mind? Number 4, emotional grounding. Now, I look at this as the ability to match my emotions to the situation, not the other way around. Last week, my feelings weren't grounded, so my response to the circumstances felt abnormal. I couldn't reconcile my skyrocketing emotions with the stimuli. I describe emotions as the relief valve on an Instant Pot. Before getting down to the good stuff, you might need to let off some steam. Just make sure you do this safely by following the directions on that Instant Pot. Well, the Bible tells us to be angry but not sin. Now, it doesn't say don't be angry. We're told that Jesus wept, but if you look at the story's context in the Gospels, Jesus didn't fly out of control. In Romans 13, God instructs us to rejoice with those that are celebratory and to grieve with those whose hearts are broken, matching emotion for emotion. Allowing your emotions to run your life or refusing to experience any feeling creates undesirable results. Only when we ground our emotions in the truths in God's Bible can we experience the beauty of our emotions. Jesus tells us to bring all our cares to Him. This includes our emotional struggles. How would you rate your emotional grounding on a scale of 1 to 5? Today, I'd say I'm a 3.5, which is much better than a week ago when I was a 1 at best. As humans, we won't remain a 5 consistently. That's okay. But knowing how to assess your emotional grounding helps you identify where you have work to do. Number 5, relational grounding. God created us in His image, which means we need relationships with others. But not just any relationship. We need healthy ones. You know what I mean. Think about those who always energize you. What happens when you're with them? Analyze your reactions and identify why these people fill up your soul. How do they do it? Now, look at the opposite. What relationships currently drain the life out of you? When you're with that person or group of people, you leave feeling like you could sleep for a decade or just poke your eye out. Why do you continue that relationship? How could you adjust your involvement or remove this relationship if it's that unhealthy? If the only reason you have to stay in this current relational pattern is fear of hurting the other person or group, it's time to reevaluate. You can't control how others respond. You can only control your response, attitude, and action. When I look at what it means to be grounded in God, I recognize my holistic self-care needs. Here's a coaching tip. Would you take some time today, maybe 30 minutes, to perform a quick self-care assessment? Which of the 5 grounding areas needs some TLC? Don't beat yourself up over this. Simply recognize your need and assess. Then brainstorm some ideas to improve a little bit over the next few days. You and I can't live disconnected lives and remain grounded. These 5 areas impact our attitudes every day. If you're not sure how to move forward in one of these areas, hop on over to KirstenDSamuel.com, click the blue button, and let's talk. Recovery's tough, but you can design a new future.